Hello and welcome, this is Redditosker. And quite a lot has gone down recently. The Game Awards were last night, and Elden Ring has won Game of the Year. It also won awards for Best Game Direction, Best Art Direction, and Best RPG. Even better, perhaps, we got the reveal trailer for Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon, the next From Software title, with a release date sometime in 2023. And if that wasn't enough, we even got what is basically confirmation that there is going to be Elden Ring DLC. It wasn't official, but it might as well have been. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll cover each of these things in more detail in a moment. But before that, I think it's important to give credit where it's due. It is absolutely vital that before we get into the news, I gloat. Because I was 100% right. A few days ago, I made a video talking about the Elden Ring Free Coliseum update. And in that video, I said that this update was a sign that they were not going to introduce the DLC of Elden Ring at the Game Awards, and that, much more likely, we were going to get a different From Software IP, and that IP was most likely Armored Core. After I posted that video with my predictions, I immediately got a slew of comments telling me how wrong I was, that this update actually reflected the opposite, that an Elden Ring DLC announcement was even more likely now thanks to the Coliseum update. I was bombarded by the short-sighted who lacked Apollo's gift of prophecy, a failing which clearly I do not have. So of course I am just joking, but what makes me so happy about this situation is that at this point my Elden Ring predictions have been completely accurate since I started covering this game. If you followed my channel for a while, you'll know I have not been wrong yet. And after today, I'm quite confident that I have my finger on the pulse of From Software. My predictions on other things might not always pan out, but at least on this thing I've got a perfect record. Okay, that's enough bragging for today. Before we get to the Armored Core analysis, I want to talk about two very interesting things that Miyazaki said during his acceptance speech at the Game Awards. The first one is this, quote, "And this might not be the right thing to say on the occasion of receiving the Game of the Year award, but I have made up my mind to create even more interesting games than this one." End quote. Now, what's interesting about this is that he has expressed this sentiment more than once recently. He won the Game of the Year for the Golden Joysticks as well, and in that acceptance speech, he said pretty much that you should continue to have very high expectations from Software. The reason I find this such a notable sentiment is because I kind of felt that Elden Ring looked like a culmination of a lot of his work. I looked at Elden Ring and I looked at the scope of it, and I looked at its success. And I wondered if Miyazaki viewed this as an attempt to create his magnum opus, his great work, the one he'll really be remembered by. But it seems like that's not exactly the case, no. The way he's talking, this man has a fire in him. He still has much to do. The way he's talking, I can feel the passion all the way over here. Elden Ring is not going to be the great work of his lifetime, which makes me incredibly excited to see what else he has in him. Alright, the next thing that he said in this acceptance speech is what I consider basically a confirmation of Elden Ring DLC on the way. Quote, "As for Elden Ring, we still have several more things we want to do. So getting this Game of the Year award really encouraged us." End quote. So he's basically saying there's still stuff that they want to add to Elden Ring, which tracks well with the content data miners found in patch 1.07 that we have yet to see. In that patch was the Coliseum, but there was also things we haven't seen, like room for new weapons, new weapon types, new biome, new legacy dungeon, things like that. So those files make a lot more sense if we assume that they are still coming, just not right now. Now, you might object to my speculation and say that it's a possibility that Miyazaki's talking about something else that's not a DLC. So more Elden Ring related board games or Elden Ring related Netflix shows or something like that. Another Elden Ring gag manga. But you would be wrong because you are not the Miyazaki whisperer, I am. And I say DLC is incoming for sure. Alright, next let's talk about Armored Core. After the reveal trailer, there was some interesting information announced for it. So we'll watch the trailer here together, and then afterwards we'll go through the new information. Let's take a look. Alright, the following is the only information that anybody really has at the moment. This is from the Steam page, and all the websites basically have the same thing. Dynamic, fast-paced mech action. Based on the knowledge gained during the joint development of their recent titles, Bandai Namco Entertainment and From Software seek to deliver a new action game. By combining From Software's long-standing expertise in mech games and their signature robust gameplay, Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon will be a new action experience. In Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon, players will assemble and pilot their own mech with 3D maneuverability to move freely through the three-dimensional fast-paced missions, take on difficult challenges, and overwhelm your enemies with dynamic movements that make full use of ranged and melee combat. Players can enjoy a variety of actions that can only be truly realized with mechs. Story overview. A mysterious new substance was discovered on a remote planet, Rubicon 3, as an energy source. This substance was expected to dramatically advance humanity's technological and communications capabilities. Instead, this substance caused a catastrophe that engulfed the planet and the surrounding stars in flames and storms, forming a burning star system. Almost half a century later, the same substance resurfaced in Rubicon 3, a planet now contaminated and sealed off by the catastrophe. Extraterrestrial corporations and resistance groups fight over the control of the substance. The player infiltrates Rubicon as an independent mercenary and finds himself in a struggle over the substance with corporations and other factions. Development team Hidetaka Miyazaki will be involved as initial game director. Based on initial development, Masaru Yamamura has taken over as director. Now there's a lot to talk about in that last sentence. So as I mentioned in a previous video, Armored Core has been in development since at least 2016, and at the time, it's very likely that Miyazaki was directing this game. It isn't until recently that From Software gained this large number of people. They had a big influx of personnel after Elden Ring. So Miyazaki was the initial director, and he's probably been involved for a very long time. And you can really tell Miyazaki's touch looking at the trailer. The first text you see says, "Feed the fire," and the second says, "Let the last cinders burn." Both of those things, fires and cinders, are definitely imagery that Miyazaki loves to use, loves to incorporate. And the rest of the trailer is also very, very Miyazaki. It shows a dilapidated mech wasteland, and the game seems to be about people motivated into conflict, motivated into this massive planet-wide war, even though the very same thing, this very same substance, caused the planet to get destroyed in the first place. So here they are doing the same thing again, engaged in this conflict, and then the lines that they said in the beginning, "Feed the fire, let the last cinder burn." It's a very metal premise. I love it. There's nothing about this trailer I don't love. Now as for this new director, Masaru Yamamura, with his most notable contribution so far being lead designer in Sekiro. Now we don't know what the gameplay is going to look like yet for this new Armored Core, but the description does talk about this fast-paced action. And given that the Sekiro designer being the creative director for this is probably a really good idea. It's a little weird having a non-Miyazaki fully directed game again. We haven't had something like that since Dark Souls 2. But I'm quite hopeful. I'm sure Yamamura is going to do a fine job. Plus, we're going to have to get used to this eventually. We were going to have to wean ourselves off of Miyazaki directing every game from From Software at some point. And this seems like the best weaning possible. Because, like I said, I really think Miyazaki worked a great deal as director for Armored Core for a long period of time. So this game is sure to have a lot of Miyazaki spirit still in it. The next few games that From Software announces that are also not fully directed by Miyazaki will probably have less and less of him so that he can focus working on his own stuff. He has said before that he wanted to work on more esoteric things. Which brings me to the final interesting tidbit. I've stated before in a previous video that according to Miyazaki's own words, From Software is likely working on 4 projects at the moment, with Miyazaki working on at least 1 game, and 3 other games being led by other directors. We now know that Armored Core is one of those games. And this is actually great news, because that means that with Miyazaki not directing Armored Core, he's probably working on other stuff, at least 1 more other game, which is kind of fantastic. So we get this Armored Core game with heavy Miyazaki influences, and then we're also getting some other Miyazaki game down the line, along with whatever else From Software is pumping out. I am ecstatic. I could not have asked for better news. Okay, so finally, I have no experience with Armored Core, but I trust From Software completely. So I am definitely going to be heavily covering this game in the coming months. However, I don't feel comfortable covering a game series in which I have so little expertise. So from now on, this is an Armored Core channel. I'm gonna have to go find some of the older Armored Cores, play through those. I believe that Armored Core 4 and Armored Core 4 Answer are both directed by Miyazaki. So I'm probably gonna start with those, maybe make a little content on them, talk about Armored Core as a series, after I develop some expertise and understanding of it. Hopefully you guys can look forward to that, and hopefully we can all look forward to From Software's future. That's the end of this video. As always, thank you very much for watching.